Okay, now that it says we are live, this is probably a good place to start. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to GEG UK. We are meeting Mizou. My name's Dave. You may have realised that I'm not Darren White. He's taller, better looking, a bit more southern than I am, a little bit hairier as well. But he's also busy doing other wonderful things. So this evening, you're stuck with me, I'm afraid. But thankfully, I'm not alone. I've got some wonderful people alongside me to chat with. So having just embarrassed myself in front of Alyssa by failing to hit the go live button on this broadcast, that's why she's smiling. It's not through any charm or wit or anything on my part. I'll introduce you to Alyssa from Mizou and bring you in, Alyssa, to meet the good people from GEG UK.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So Alyssa, I'm from Mizou. I hope you're feeling very energized, or as energized as you can be on a Wednesday evening. And thanks for having me here. I've seen there's been some pretty cool companies you've been speaking to, so it's an honor.
And it's an honor to have you here as well. So, Alyssa, tell me a little bit, before we get into Mizou, let's learn a little bit about you. Tell me a little bit about your history, where you come from, and what brings you to be working in this capacity.
After university, I got started working in tech companies. I was based in London at the time, but I'd sort of had a very international upbringing, and that was due to my father, who directed international schools. So it's interesting that I've come sort of full circle, applying all my experience in tech startups now for a much better cause, which is the edtech world. So it's really nice to be working with teachers. We're working with a lot of international schools, so it kind of feels like I've almost been training for this my whole life. My dad had me working at parties for his new teachers when I was younger. So the fact that I'm looking after partnerships, makes a lot of sense. Oh, you're on mute.
Goodness, that'll teach me to try and be professional and keep my microphone down whilst I'm listening, won't it? Not doing very well here. Sorry, Darren. Working at parties, that's something that you've got experience in other areas of your life, isn't it? You were telling me about your time in Berlin when we met last week.
Well, okay, in true ADHD fashion, I have a lot of side hustles and side projects and lots of other interests. I finally discovered I'm a neurodivergent learner, and we'll actually get into why Mizou might be great for different types of specialized learning. I actually, on top of having been a DJ for a few years, I was also a sommelier. Well, I did the Wine and Spirit Education Trust, so I also learned some stuff like that too. So that's
amazing.
me.
Amazing. I'm working in the wrong educational establishment if we don't have our own sommelier, I'm sure. But maybe that's something I need to speak to our CEO about. Thanks for sharing that about yourself, Alyssa. What about Mizou then? How did that company start up? Can you give us a little bit of the background and the history about the company?
Yeah, definitely. So, like sort of most companies within this AI space, we're very, very new. And actually, to give a bit of backstory, while we've only been like open to the public to use for the past sort of 4 or 5 months, the first year we were in sort of stealth mode. And so during this time, the tech team were tinkering sort of with open AI's technology to basically build a lot of guardrails to ensure that all of the content that comes into the sort of interactions that the students are having, they're coming from predefined educational sources, and they're guided very much by preset prompts. So just to kind of clarify what Mizou is, we are a set of AI tools, but I know that within like the sort of educational space, everyone's probably quite sick of hearing about AI and chatbots and all this kind of stuff. Like let's actually like find some use cases. And so what Mizou wanted to do is just create a platform where teachers can create chatbots for their students in a safe way and in a way that doesn't require any technical background. So most teachers, they're not going to necessarily know how to code, know about this kind of AI jargon like prompting or large language model. We don't use that kind of potentially mystifying language. We try to make it as easy as possible. And then obviously with these guardrails and lots of extra sort of privacy steps in place in our policy to basically make it safe for educational environments, as well as children under 14, which most large language models wouldn't allow.
Yeah, so that's always one of the concerns, isn't it, around that data privacy and ensuring that any data that we put into an AI system stays within our control. And that's something that you take care of at Mizou, and we can look at your GDPR statements and get data sharing agreements in place as potential customers, I'm assuming.
Yeah, exactly. So every country sort of has their own different certifications that need to be approved. So we do have most in the areas that we're operating in. And yeah, some of the ways that we've been able to get these certifications is by proving that we're not using any of the interactions to train greater large language models. So you do get oversight as a teacher on the conversation that the student had with the chatbot, but that's not going anywhere for further third parties or anything like that. So it's going more just for the teacher's own understanding. Basically all of the interactions, they're very much anonymized, so they would either be accessed by a student by just they don't need to log in, they would just be putting in a nickname or scanning a QR code, or if a school wants a more integrated partnership, we can connect to their LMS, and then information can go directly into their system and we wouldn't store anything on our servers.
Excellent. I think that's really important when we're just going through at our place now the kind of the building of an AI working party to evaluate different systems. But you talk about guardrails, that's exactly where we're at. We need to have something to come back to ensure that everything is going to be safe. We're not promoting something that isn't going to look after our data and our learners' data, probably more importantly. So it's really encouraging to hear about that. So tell us a little bit about what the product does, if you don't mind, please, Alyssa.
What we're going to do is go through it together.
Cool.
So I don't, everyone can talk about all these kind of revolutionary effects of AI in the classroom. But I want to go through a few examples together that I've seen like real teachers using in their classrooms. We've been doing a lot of pilot programs with schools globally that are following all sorts of different curriculums, from GCSE, A levels to IB to national programs, advanced placement, whatever it might be, and all sorts of different years as well. So younger years, older years, even some universities have been using it. So I think we can just jump in straight away. I can share my screen and we can start with some really cool use cases. And in doing so, we can look at how they can be made.
Fantastic. So feel free to bring your screen up into the broadcast now, and whilst you're doing that, just to mention to people, this isn't just your very passive session that sometimes we get. We're going to be encouraging people to be joining in and giving Mizou a go whilst you watch it. So this is, it's not enough jeopardy for me. It's just having a live stage and needing to remember to press a button. I'm bringing in live demos and live people to this as well. So Alyssa, I'm sure that in a moment when we get to that stage, you'll share a link for people to use. But for now, we're going to look at Alyssa's screen and follow through what it is that we can start to do with the product.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, we can share this one already. Let me put it in here.
Okay.
Did you? So I've shared it in the private chat. Do you think
Cool.
you'd be able to
I'll
share
bring
it
it up now. Yeah,
one?
that's fine.
So this link can be accessed from any device, a mobile phone, tablet, laptop, computer. So have a look at it. So this is already just one example. So you can imagine sort of a classroom where every math problem is tailored to each student's current interests. So instead of, a teacher picking a use case to introduce fractions, we've seen a lot of teachers creating chatbots where a student gets asked initially their interest, and then all of the questions are customized to that very interest. So this approach isn't about just making maths fun, but it's about making it sort of very relevant to a student's world. I'm sure teachers get asked very, very often, well, when am I going to use this? When's this going to be relevant to me? Here's a great example, which very much will answer that question that no doubt you get asked. So let's go. So the first thing, the student says, yes, I'm ready. And as it was sort of set up in the background by the teacher, it does exactly what we wanted. So before we embark on our first mission, could you share with me something you're really interested in? It could be anything from your favorite sport to a hobby or even a subject at school. So let's say baking. Let's see what happens here.
Love a cake. Love a pie.
Yeah, I mean, I used to love baking so much, but I did kind of struggle when I wanted to make only half the amount of cupcakes, for example. So let's see. Splendid choice. So in Fractionville, the Baking Guild is facing a dilemma. They want to bake a batch of cookies that require 3/4 cup of sugar. However, their measuring cup can only hold a 1/4 cup. How many times do they need to fill and pour their measuring cup? So I'm wondering if anyone else has been asking these, sort of interacting with this chatbot. Maybe in the chat, people can put what they answered as their interests, and if they thought the questions were sort of related to it, and what did they think about how much more engaging was it?
Well, do you know what? We can do one better than having comments in the chat, because
Okay.
in true Blue Peter style, we've got somebody we prepared earlier, and so I can
Amazing.
bring Tracy into the conversation. So, Tracy, thank you so much for joining us. Tracy is another wonderful Google educator, and has been using Mizou for a little while now. Is that right, Tracy? Oh, I'm not hearing you, Tracy.
I'm going to say I did a Dave.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I've started a trend, haven't I? Here, yeah. Okay, but thank you for making me feel better about not being the only person to stay muted.
I love Mizou because it really responds to me, because I put cooking in to the response. To
that's so funny.
Even before you said it, but it asked me how I was feeling. I was like, I'm afraid. So it said, don't worry, we'll go through it step by step. And then it asked me about, we need a cup of flour. So I asked it what a cup is, because cups aren't something we use to cook with in the UK. So it's just explained what a cup is. So I love how it's responding to my needs, and I'm not getting stuck, because quite often with things, I get stuck on sort of the non-relevant parts of understanding the question, because you get sort of hung up on those bits. And it's actually now saying, okay, that's the measurement, so don't worry about that. How many is half of 4? So I'm going to give it a go. Okay.
Nice.
We'll see whether I can work it out. Let's hope I can. I'm glad
really
you didn't make it too hard.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, that though, isn't it? That kind of regionalization, and how with some more programmatic experiences, you're very much limited, but by using AI, it's a lot more flexible, isn't it, to try and explain that regionalization?
Exactly. But also, I can show you now in the chatbot creator interface. So this is what the teachers would be seeing when they make the chatbot for their students. If you wanted to only refer to, let's say, UK measuring, then you would say in here, in the AI instructions. So here we go, this is, we call it fraction adventure. In the instructions, this is what people in the AI world might call prompts, but we want to keep it really as accessible as possible to even the non-techie people. So in the instructions, it says, you're a wise guide leading a student through a magical land called Fractionville. The student's mission is to help the inhabitants solve their problems using their knowledge of fractions. And then we had marked it here as grade 4. So for UK schools, when they would get integrated, they would get the UK interface. This would say years instead. And then this is the welcome message, which the students would see when they start interacting with the chatbot. And in the rules, this is now where it gets interesting, where you can start to really tweak how it behaves. So we've put in, ask the students about their interests, tailor fraction problems to those interests, provide hints if needed, celebrate correct answers, and don't provide the right one, only provide guided questions. And then here, if we want it to only be, use only UK specific examples and questions. And then that way it would only be referencing, well, I don't know, actually, does UK use grams, or are you guys still using, like, it's a bit of a mix.
We use cups. We use everything else, just not cups.
Pardon?
Yeah.
We use everything else, just not cups.
Okay, perfect. So if we then put this in and then we play around with it here and we ask baking questions, we should expect to see it using what is then specific to a UK context. So I wanted to show you this because this is basically all you need to do to get started on making your own chatbots. We have this bit here as the uploadable knowledge file. Should you as a teacher have your own, like, let's say, lesson plans or your own resources, whatever you want, you can upload them here. And then in the rules as well, you can ask the chatbot to reference the knowledge files. I want to try something which I've not done before, which might be a little bit ambitious, but I think we can do it. I think I can make a chatbot now in a minute, and I want someone to time me. Basically, it would be to show another interesting use case. Basically, a lot of schools, you know, when you're learning about what, you know, anything to do, you know, with history or let's say characters in novels or anything like this, you can actually have a very interactive way of learning about certain things by actually interacting with that historical figure or that character from a book. So yeah, you could learn about war crimes or war strategies through having a conversation with Winston Churchill. And I want to try that now because I think I can do it really quickly. So Tracy or Dave, can you time me? Yeah. Can you put a 1 minute timer on?
Good, yeah. Oh, you want me to count down or to count up and see how quickly you can do it?
Try do a countdown from 1 minute. I reckon we can do it.
Okay, 1 minute. Don't know if people should be able to see that. Are you ready?
Okay.
Let's go.
Let's go now. So I'm going to choose AI generated. I'll put learn about war strategies by talking to Winston Churchill and follow, oh God, no, and follow content related to GCSE history. Let's do, that's grade 10, get ideas. Come on. Okay, interactive. This is exactly what I want to engage in a conversation with Winston Churchill to learn about war strategies and gain insights into GCSE history content. Perfect. It's loading up. Cool. We've got the instructions that it's pre-populated for us because we went the AI generated route. Let's check the, so what it said, hello, I'm Winston Churchill. Let's delve into war strategies and GCSE history together. Would you like to ask me a question?
Hi.
Okay, perfect. I think I'm happy. Let's see how it works.
There we go.
Okay, so here's the preview of the chatbot. It's just preparing it now for testing. Awesome. So, hello, I'm Winston Churchill. Let's delve into war strategies and GCSE history together. Would you like to ask me a question? Shall we try something now, which is something I always recommend to all the teachers, is try to be a very rebellious student. Try to get it to go off topic, try to distract it. Let's see what I can do. So let's go. How did you build bombs? You know, one could argue that that's relevant, but let's see how appropriate are the answers to educational environments. So can we all read this? Is it good enough, the quality? Well, basically, it gives a very diplomatic answer. During my time, bomb production involved a mix of chemistry, engineering, and manufacturing techniques adjusted according to the bomb's purpose, be it for demolition or disruption. Factories dedicated to war efforts were critical, employing thousands, including women. The science behind it was led by experts in explosives and ballistics. Would you like to know how these efforts impacted specific battles or campaigns?
Can you ask them something?
Yeah.
Sort of why you don't like, I don't know, why you didn't like X politician, or something a bit sort of contentious, or what did America do wrong?
Okay.
Not that I was the rebellious student.
Okay. Yeah, please add it into the comments, people, what sort of questions I should be asking. I'm just going to quickly grab my computer, my charger, while you guys come up with some questions. I want some really, really rebellious questions.
So come on, guys. We've all worked in schools for long enough. We just put yourself in the mindset of a year 9 boy, because they're normally the ones that come up with the most awkward questions, aren't they? And having been a year 9 boy at one point, I probably would have gone down the route of focusing on something like the cigars that you smoked or something like that. And
I like it.
What brand of cigars are your favourites? Completely off topic.
What cigar was your favourite? Well, I mean, this student does know that he smoked cigars, so they are somewhat engaged, right?
Making knowledge, yeah.
Well, he does, but then he asks again a question to bring it back. Do you think such personal tastes of leaders can influence public perception or morale during crucial times? So back to, these critical thinking questions and, proper syllabus specific content.
So it does try to bring people back on topic.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you can tweak it as much as you want. So if you find that these answers might be too long or too short, you can put into the rules how many characters it should be limited to. You can also ask it to provide assistance in multiple languages. So since we work with a number of international schools that have not only bilingual but very multilingual settings, there they will maybe put in a rule such as, if you notice a student is struggling, ask them their native language and provide them guidance in that. So there's all sorts of ways that these chatbots can be tweaked for different learning environments, basically. Yeah.
And can the student initiate that? Sorry, Tracy, go on.
All I was going to say is, so would the question be posed in English, and then the system would realize it was struggling? So the student, like Dave was saying, could then say, I'm struggling, can you tell me it in Romanian?
Yeah, so the student can ask for it as well, or the chatbot can be prompted to ask the student for assistance. So it could be like, if you notice a lot of spelling errors, ask them if they would like guidance in another way, for example. So it can be both ways. Some students, the school environment spend a lot of time teaching the students about everything they can ask the chatbots, whereas other school environments, they might not have taught their students about the sort of prompting that they can do when interacting. And so then they take a more active approach in having, these different rules set in the chatbot. So they'll be asking how they can provide assistance as opposed to waiting to be asked by the student, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's proactive in its support of students, because it's not just the material that it's sharing or bringing to light for the student. It comes across to me as being quite supportive of a student's needs.
Yeah, exactly. So like at Mizou, we basically realized very early on that it was crucial for us not to direct teachers too much. We aren't educators ourselves at Mizou. Our teacher community are the ones who are spending their days, in the classroom trenches. You really understand the unique needs and the dynamics of your students, so you know what works best for them. And so that's why we've sort of kept it really just open-ended by having the rules, having the instructions, and then you can decide how much of an active role it takes in assisting a student. And you define that basically in your rules. But in general, if it's not defined, it will respond to the student's questions in an appropriate way.
So we talked about the languages that it can support in that respect. How can it support students that maybe have additional needs in other ways, maybe taking care of, I don't know, dyslexia or something similar to that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do have the text-to-speech and speech-to-text functionality. So I don't know if the sound really works, but when you guys all go off and play with some chatbots yourselves, you can test out you can have this read out instead, and then you can sort of speak it in here if you want to. So that sort of helps with accessibility. We will be over the next months, the AI world is moving so quickly, and we will be introducing visuals as well. So there's going to be, let's say students are answering maths questions, they'll be able to ask for like a visual representation of that question. You'll be able to, basically request all sorts of visual accompaniments to the interactions, which should be, quite a huge game changer for, people like myself with ADHD. I like to sort of understand something in as much of a multisensory way as possible. So that would certainly, I'd love that. So yeah, just watch this space, I suppose. I have a few more examples to show you guys actually. So another big one obviously is, with writing. Let me see, I think I have it over here.
While you're moving over, Alyssa, can it only speak in English? So if I'm a Spanish teacher, will it speak with an awful dodgy English accent?
No, so there are accents of like that language, but they're very neutral accents, so they wouldn't have a regional accent in that way. So in the way that maybe Siri or these Alexa, they're these kind of very neutral accents in that sense. That's how the ones for different countries are. But again, we're very open to feedback. So we haven't tested every single language out. So if you guys are using it with some lesser used language and you think the accent is coming out, kind of weird, let us know. We want to investigate that. It's an ever evolving field. So yeah, we're all ears. And actually one thing to mention about I've closed it now. But yeah, when students are interacting with the chatbot, we had this really great feedback from our wonderfully communicative community of teachers, basically that they would love to get an alert if certain words that they would define in their teacher dashboard get used. So, certain sensitive words or strings of words, you can't be, as a teacher, expected to go through the transcripts of all the conversations that your students have had, but instead you could get pinged like, this conversation you might want to take a look at. There might be sensitive stuff for you to acknowledge and take further steps with. That's something we're going to be implementing. So yeah, we want to hear about all these use cases in schools and how we can tweak our offering to better suit your daily uses. But yeah, so this one that we were looking at. So basically, writing, I'm sure most students are going on ChatGPT. I certainly would. And basically this chatbot sort of provides a sort of middle ground solution. So when this chatbot was made, I don't know, maybe you guys know about TOK. It's called Theory of Knowledge. It's sort of an extra but necessary part of the International Baccalaureate Diploma. And students are basically left to their own devices to write this essay. And similar to the extended essay, there's a lot of freedom around it. There are some frameworks that need to be followed, but overall, it's a very much independent activity. And so this coach, it was an idea that was made by one of our school partners. The instructions here were, you are an experienced TOK essay coach. Your student is preparing for the IB diploma essay. Refer to the attached document and help them formulate an essay around their choice. Ask one question at a time to help to avoid overwhelming the student. They've uploaded a knowledge file, which they created a sort of helper for TOK students, uploading the mark scheme and uploading the questions of the 2024 TOK essay. There's about 10 questions. And in the rules, they've put provide structure guidance, prompt reflection, offer constructive feedback, and encourage critical thinking. Don't write it for them and provide guidance. Make sure you follow the IB diploma rubric for what makes a good TOK essay. There's a few more bits here and, up to 500 characters. And so this really is something that students can interact with outside of school hours. They can just keep asking questions. It never gets impatient with them. By putting in this limit of 500 characters and by putting in the rule of not to write it for them, it's not going to do that, but instead will be this coach that can continue guiding and providing really specific assistance that's related to that mark scheme that was attached. Students can also copy and paste sections and ask for really specific feedback on that section. And it's just a great addition to students who are very much kind of on their own during that time. So yeah, that's another really cool use case that we've seen. Yeah, go on.
Can students go back into it then? As in, can they continue that conversation, or is it one and done? So if I've started it and then I've gone off to do something else, but I want to come back and keep building.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we, if I go back here, when we create the session to share out with students, let's go back to that TOK bot so I can show you exactly how it works. So there's two ways. Without the integration to the school, this is how it would be done. So we would do new session. Should the teacher wish to, they're able to attach here a grading rubric. So that would then, like, let's say they're making a chatbot, I don't know, to recreate past papers of an A-level maths exam. Let's say they can then attach the mark scheme of that maths exam so that then when they go through the interactions, they can have it graded against it and also get a summary of the work marked against that scheme. But we can look at that in a second. Once it's launched, let's see, it's just doing a quick safety check. Basically, it's a unique URL that the students would get, and then they can keep going back to that unique URL and continue the conversation from where they left off. If we have the integration with the school LMS, then the chat would just be embedded. Let's say if it's in Google Classroom, be embedded in the assignment or whatever the school is wanting to call them. And yeah, they would be able to interact with the chatbot within that assignment and always return to it from there. Of course, oh, this isn't great. Let me just refresh. I don't know what's happening. This teacher can as well end the session, so they can close the sessions if they don't want, let's say they're doing like this kind of more assessed assignment and they have a limited time, the teacher can close it and say, now it's done. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay. I will have to pause this. I don't know, maybe it's my own internet here. I'll check with my tech team about that. But yeah, basically you would launch it and share the URL with your students. And then I have an example here. I had some of my colleagues basically answering some interacting with a chatbot that I'd done. We're all based in Barcelona, so a relevant one was to make a chatbot simulating ordering in a Spanish cafe. And well, here's one example. So Hamza, he's our CEO. He got a B. Here's the summary. It said the students successfully engaged in a basic conversation in Spanish, demonstrating an understanding of simple phrases and requests. They were able to order, it basically explains what they did, but it also points out sort of gaps in their learning. So, or understanding, there were minor errors in spelling and grammar, indicating room for improvement in language accuracy. Overall, good effort, but they could benefit from this and that. So it can be very granular if, for example, you have a more specific rubric that you upload, and here you can see the full transcript. And similarly, through the integration that we have with schools' LMSs, we can also have our tech team sitting with the school's tech team and having all of these grades and interactions actually then appearing in the grade books, so that everything's all in that one environment.
I think it's really good that you can use such technical language with it and it just kind of understands it. You talked about the TOK phrase earlier.
Yeah, so this is like theory of knowledge, which is very specific to the IB. Yeah, exactly.
That's it, reference to TOK and to IB, and it just takes it and runs with it and understands where we're going with it there, doesn't it? And we've had a couple of questions coming in on the chat. So
yeah.
First one is from Jasmine. Hey Jasmine, lovely to see you. And she's asking, is it based at any particular student age range?
No, so we've kept it very open-ended. I think a lot of schools have assumed that this would be only relevant for the older years, but actually with many of our school trial partners, they've been seeing engagement across all years. So yeah, with the younger years, for example, the fraction one we were looking at earlier, there's all kinds of ways to introduce, history through talking to these various, historical characters with book characters, writing all kinds of stories together. What I would suggest for people, if they want to get inspired, we encourage our teacher community to share their chatbots actually on the Mizou platform. So you can go through and have a look. Let's say that would be year 4. Sort of what sort of stuff have other teachers been making? So here we have like a grammar adventure, a chat with Bob Marley, exploring the world states, ordering food in an Indian restaurant, United Nations representative. It's all kinds of stuff. So we really, have loved to see teachers really getting so inspired by the community and coming up with different use cases for their school environments.
Fantastic. We've got another question here now. I might need the chatbot to help me with pronunciation here, so apologies, Efthymios, if I've got your pronunciation wrong, of your name wrong there. But he's asking, can you create a chatbot that allows students to choose the grade level it will run on?
I believe so. I think you'd have to play around with it a little bit, because we do have in the sort of the building interface, you would select a grade level, but you can also select every single grade level and then put into the instructions or into the rules, ask the student which grade they would like to be, or sort of which grade they're in, and base all the questions to the grade level that they provide. And that should be enough. Similarly, you could also have it working dynamically, so it doesn't actually ask the student, but you could put make the difficulty of the questions dynamic based on the responses that you're getting, and then that way you can it would make the questions harder if they're getting them right and make them easier if they're getting them wrong. So many different ways to kind of address that idea.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Jasmine's back, and she's come up with a big question. This is what it all comes down to, isn't it? Really, to certainly to school budgets. Is there a cost to have this? No, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So I guess the better question is, what is the cost to have this, and what can you guys do to try and support our GEG UK and international GEG members to try out the product?
Yeah, no, it's an obvious question. So yeah, it's actually totally free to use to sort of try out the tools. It's limited, basically. I think, I don't know, maybe it's something like 50 sessions a day. So you can try out most features on the freemium model. So the only thing it doesn't sort of include is the addition of this knowledge file. It doesn't include the text to speech and speech to text. And it also doesn't include something that I'm about to show you now, which is this AI Academy. And then we are also developing some internal tools. But yeah, so the free version, great to kind of get used to Mizou, see if there is, you know, if you get inspired and find ways that you'd want to use it in your school. Then we do also have licenses for individual teachers, for groups of teachers, and then, you know, the most integrated one, which is where we connect with your LMS, and it's on a per student basis. So they're anything, you know, from, it could be from £15 per student per year to then something around like £20 per teacher per year, per month, depending on your usage. So I'll just direct you guys to our pricing page. It's mizou.com/pricing, and you can see there if anything kind of aligns with what you're looking for in terms of an integration. However, we are running some very, very cool pilot sort of programs with a lot of international and sort of independent schools at the moment. We're happy to work with anyone, basically anyone who's looking at how would their school environment engage with something like Mizou. So we would usually work with a group of anything between, you know, 8 and 15 early adopter teachers. I do like to encourage the coordinator from the school to try bring in some, you know, non-techie early adopters if possible. I know it sounds maybe like a bit of a contradiction, but I think it's important to see how the non-techie teachers engage with it as well. And then basically during the month-long trial, we would introduce the teachers to this AI Academy. We would basically, in collaboration with the coordinator, we would define certain metrics of success. So everything from, you know, how many questions were asked, how much time the teacher would have saved from, you know, all the summaries that were provided and all the feedback that was provided, to then more qualitative sort of surveys that we would maybe run with the students and the teachers of general feelings and sentiments towards AI. It's such a new thing, you know, how quickly, you know, can we introduce such tools? So we need to know both these kind of more harder and softer metrics as well. And then at the end of the month, we would basically look through this presentation and we'll get a real understanding of how did it get adopted in that school environment, and then decide on next steps. So if there are any teachers here from schools that are looking to join such programs, you know, we do have a bit of a process that we like to do these trials in. It's how we can truly see, how people like it, and, you know, customize based on school feedback.
So what's the best way for them to get involved in a trial? Is it to go through the website, or to get in touch with you directly?
Yeah, so just to get in touch with me, my name's Alyssa. You can see the spelling up here. So it's Alyssa@mizou.com. And yeah, it's always quite nice to have, we generally run them from the beginning and sort of the middle of the month. And it's nice to have a few schools starting at the same time. and bringing the coordinators together either during the middle or at the end so we can exchange learnings on how it's been adopted across different curriculums, across different year groups. Everyone's been using it differently. Some are using it, for assessment. Some are using it more for engaging and introducing certain new themes or topics. Some have even used it for teacher training, so uploading their handbooks or their policies as like a resource to a chatbot. So that way, new teachers or existing teachers, if they have questions about, let's say, the policies, they can ask the chatbot and they get instant answers. But yeah, that AI Academy, just to quickly show that, we understood that, it is very hard to get teachers all together in schools for like training sessions. So we created this series of self-paced workshops, basically 75 minutes. I'd say it's around 2 hours, but if you were to sort of split it up into these bite-sized chunks, it's something about 10 to 15 minutes each. And it just helps to demystify this whole AI. Is it going to take my job? What is it? And ultimately, we're just saying, no, it's just another great tool that you can add to your growing, arsenal of tools to use in today's, smart classroom. And yeah, ultimately, just the better the instructions are that you give the chatbot when you're creating it, the better the outcome will be, in the same way that the better the instructions are that you give to a teaching assistant, the better that teaching assistant will do and follow the sort of objectives of that lesson. So yeah, these are available then as well to all our school partners. And yeah, we find that when teachers go through this, they really get very confident and inspired in how to apply these chatbots for various different use cases. So yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Of course, we can go deeper and look at all kinds of, let me just do that. And we can look at all kinds of different use cases. But yeah, are there any more questions for now?
I think Tracy had a question then, did you, Tracy?
Just one last question. What about
Perfect.
the parents? So I know some parents who would love this. And you've mentioned schools and teachers can buy licenses, and do parents just kind of follow the same path?
Yeah, so if parents want to make their own accounts, they could get the sort of individual accounts that we have on the pricing page, which you can find. Yeah, we've actually had some schools as well making, again, international schools in other countries, when they're welcoming new families to their school community, they usually provide all kinds of different resources. So one use case has been taking and making a Mizou chatbot that introduces, important basic sort of language skills for when the parents or the families are in that country, just uploading all kinds of like family onboarding documents, which then the parents can interact with to basically get all their questions and concerns addressed that they might have about the new school that their kids are going to be joining.
Thank you.
Amazing. In lieu of any questions from the chat, so we've still got a few minutes left if you want to put your questions into the chat. Question from me, Alyssa, is what does the future hold for Mizou? What is it that we're likely to see coming down the production line in the upcoming months?
So there's a few different ways I would love to see Mizou developing. So there's the let's say the improvement and the addition of all sorts of features to the current chatbot functions, with the visuals, with the constant sort of improvement of that interaction. But I think very interestingly, we want to create alongside schools a chatbot creator tool for the students so that they can start to make their own chatbots, and kind of in a way be pioneering the introduction of prompting and AI technology as part of a curriculum. So that's something we really want and need the input of people who are following curriculums, who are working in schools, try to understand what are the basically main priorities when it comes to a tool like this. It has to be different from the teacher one, but how? So this is something that we want to be working on and ideally have ready for the upcoming academic year. But then in terms of just the general chatbots as well, we want to partner ideally with curriculum providers. So these would be, your Cambridge AQAs, your international baccalaureates, these types of knowledge bases of information that are relevant to educational settings, so that then that way we could get their stamp of approval on some pre-made chatbots for every subject. And that way when schools partner with us, they'd be able to just select pre-made chatbots to get started with before their teachers start making their own for their own kind of agendas. I think that would be really great. Obviously, keeping in mind, textbooks aren't updated every year anyway. We just think with technology these days, we should be able to be. So why don't we have this dynamic connection with the providers?
Fantastic. I think it's really exciting, isn't it? What's coming down the conveyor belt of production. What about building in video? I mean, just going back to that Winston Churchill example, I've seen some tools where we've actually got the person speaking as well. You've obviously got the sound. Is there any desire to go down that route, or are you focused on your?
100%. Yeah, definitely. It is something we want to look at. We want to tread very, very carefully. There's a lot of controversy and concern around, deep fakes and having these types of very real looking people that, look like our teachers, that look like you and I, saying things and doing things that we wouldn't maybe ever have said or done. And so we really need to move carefully. We again need to be working with schools, aligning it with the policies, and kind of aligning it with a lot of education, both when it comes to students and to teachers, in kind of knowing when to kind of, how can we identify when it's a real person, if it's an AI generated person, and treading carefully, but with interest and wanting to be sort of ahead of the curve with that as well. So definitely watch this space. And actually, I totally forgot to mention, we also do have these internal tools that we're working on for teachers. So already there is a sort of ChatGPT 4 for teachers, which they can use for lesson planning. It's basically been tweaked for more safer interactions in educational settings. But it's still a work in progress. So again, great time to get involved with us, because we're listening and asking a lot of questions from early adopter schools and teachers of how should we develop this internal tool. We wanted to add it, for obvious reasons. We want to have a lot of AI tools under our umbrella, but also just from a business point of view, schools have limited budgets when it comes to AI tools. And so instead of having to sort of putting schools in a position where they have to choose between a few different providers, we sort of are trying to then build it all under the one umbrella. And I'm sure accounts departments will thank us for that as well.
Indeed. And I think it's good to see that we're already getting feedback coming in through the chat. Ephthimios has been putting his ideas forward already in terms of creating a group of chatbots in a folder instead of individual sessions. So and also we've got on the bottom of the screen there the Twitter handle for Mizou, so people can follow you there and can continue to feedback their ideas through that mechanism, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, to respond to Eftimios, our teachers are already doing that. The ones who have the integrated connection to their LMS. So they will have chatbots sitting in assignments. So some will have multiple chatbots. So one assignment might be like IB biology study tools, and under there will be a series of chatbots that a teacher has made to help them with their studying for that. So one of the chatbots could be a past paper, multiple choice past paper generator. The other one could be an experiment designer. The other one could be, a coach, whatever the teacher might define as a useful chatbot. They can then put multiple embedded into the assignment.
Amazing. Tracy, you've been very patient. You've come on as our golden guinea pig, and you've tried a few things out as alongside what Alyssa's been saying. Any final questions from yourself?
No, I mean, the biggest thing that excites me is students don't have to identify. So I have my students who all have a number. They sign in as a number, so they don't even put a name in. I know this sounds like I'm being overly cautious. I know who's number one in my class and who's number two. So I see their data. I know what's happening with them. Nobody else does. It's a walled garden. I can use it as young as I like. I can use it as old as I like. And it's one of the few tools that you can use legally with under 13s.
Yeah, I think that's really important, isn't it? Just keeping an eye on that, the legalities of things and the ethics around the use of AI. Amazing, thank you, Alyssa. Anything else that you want to share before we finish up? Anything else? You seem to have remembered loads of additional features as we've gone through this. So I want you to leave everything out on the pitch. I want you to make sure that you've covered all bases before we let you go.
Well, I mean, our tech team have created chatbots that helps with the development. So actually, a lot of the code is written by chatbots. So we are able to move very, very quickly. And so, yeah, that's why it's just, there's always new stuff. We want to hear from our teacher community, what's useful. So that's probably why every week there's something new. I would love it if, over the next few months, years, more standards and certifications get set within educational environments for such tools to ensure a continued effort is being made, not by tech companies like us, but by third parties that are focusing on the safeguarding of these types of tools. Basically, it's all so new, and we're following everything that is being set. But I feel like maybe it's not even stringent enough. I'm a very strong advocate on preparing students for a world with AI, but it's evolving so fast, and we need to always just keep that safety at the forefront of our conversations. So I'll be interested to see what kind of security protocols will be a basic expectation for tech companies like us to fulfill before being able to work with students.
And it's often the way, isn't it, with technology, that Pandora's box is open before the rules around what comes out are set. So there's an element of playing catch up for the authorities around that.
Yeah, exactly. People are very welcome to reach out to me at Alyssa at Mizou.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Alyssa Taylor. Any sort of ideas that you have in mind for pilots or partnership opportunities, I love to talk. Reach out.
Cool. And just because we've covered most of the questions in the chat, just to reiterate, Yana has asked around pricing again. So there is a link to pricing at mizou.com/pricing, but there's also a free tier for them to get used to the system and to try things out, which I think is where I would start off with. Let's give the free trial a go. See how that works out for you, and when you fall in love with it, Alyssa will gladly exchange that love for some cold hard currency.
Nicely put. That's exactly it. Thank
Brilliant.
you very much for your time, guys.
Thanks so much for joining us, Alyssa, and thank you also, Tracy, for giving up your evening as well. It's been wonderful to have a user of the system on here as well, rather than just somebody who is very passionate about a product, but also tied to the company. So that independence is really useful. So thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you for putting up with the person who isn't Darren White on one of these and the person who forgot to press start at the beginning. But hey, it's a learning curve, and all I need now is a chatbot to help me to embed that learning for future sessions. Thanks everyone, really good to have you with us tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening and enjoy the rest of your day if you're watching this on catch up. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Tracy and Dave. Bye.